Hello, everyone. This is Victor from Los Colts, and what you're about to see is a video about how I think, in my opinion, the Colts will tackle the next weeks of free agency prior to the 2026 NFL draft. And I hope you enjoy it. If you have any opinions or comments, leave them down below, and let's get into business. So let's start by having a look at the depth chart. I put a little bit what I think next season will look like with the players we have under contract. So as you can see, Daniel Jones already transition tag on Daniel Jones, and we have plenty of spots to fill, especially I would think in the D line, strong safety with the departure of Nick Ross. These are the free agents. Sorry, I didn't highlight them, but um, mainly Nick Ross and Alec Pierce are the two guys you wanna resign, but also it makes sense to resign some veteran players because we need to fill these backup spots here. For instance, on the defensive end, on the linebacker spot, maybe have a little bit more depth in the secondary. I don't know because we don't know what Ward will, if he will be playing next season or not. He has hinted that he might want to retire. We'll have to wait on that. So this is the situation, and let's now jump into the contract situation on the salary cap. So for the salary cap analysis, I'm using SpotTrack and Over the Cap. As you can see, they have all the list of the contracts and they let you play with them as if you were a GM. So feel free to use them and drop your predictions. As you can see, the Colts are currently 4 million under the cap, which means by the 11th, I think it is, they'll need to at least be positive to avoid any penalties. So we we're expecting to see some moves from the Colts in the next days. But if you look at the top contracts, Daniel Jones with the transition tag, 37 million, Pittman 29 million, Wagner 26. I think there's a clear one that needs to be tackled, and this is Pittman's. Pittman's contract right now 29 million, but only five of them would be a dead cap hit if the Colts chose to release Pittman to cut him. That would mean we would only have 5 million in the dead cap, and that would free a lot of money. But I don't think this is a good option because we would solve a problem. Maybe we would resign Pierce with this money, but we would still be lacking a wide receiver one, wide receiver two in Pittman. And I think Pittman has given the Colts this confidence in the last years that he should stay on the team and at least be given a chance to stay. And I think the Colts could give him a pretty friendly deal, extending him one more year, and that way also putting the dead cap hit onto next year's salary cap, and that would be more or less. I think here the application it's suggesting a 58 million contract. I think Pittman wants to stay in Indy. He might accept a 52 million contract for 2 years, which would mean probably like for him to have more or less the same money this year that he was promised would be a 28 million signing bonus plus the 1 million of base salary amount would amount to that 29, but the cap hit, as you can see, for 2026 would drop from 29 to 15. If you would like to know how cap hits work, I could do a video about it, but I will go pretty fast right now because otherwise my video would be like an hour long and we don't have time for that. So as you can see, an extension for Pittman for 2 years would mean dropping the salary cap and being already 9 million over the cap, which is something. Next up, to create more cap space, I think what would make the most sense is cutting a player with a pretty big contract. And from the top of the list, there are only a couple ones who might be worth it. Maybe Wagner, but I don't think so. I think his establishment of defense, I wouldn't cut him. Maybe Kenny Moore, maybe Grover Stewart. With those players, there would be a pretty good amount of money saved on the salary cap. And to avoid having to do that, the player I would cut would be Zaire Franklin. Zaire Franklin has had a pretty bad season, and by releasing him, we would only have a 2.5 million dead cap hit, and we would free 6 more million. As you can see right now, we have 40 million in the salary cap after Franklin's cut. And you also have to have in mind that for the draft, as you can see here, this is the prediction for the contracts for the year one cap. So the Colts would need to have around 9 million available of this 14 for draft contracts, which means it leaves us with only 5 million. So what I think it's the best move, and this is I think what the Colts are trying to do with the transition tag on Daniel Jones, and not the full franchise tag, is give time Daniel Jones to test the market, to see that the Colts are the ones that are investing in him and believing him, and then when Colts is sure that the money he would get from the Colts would be the same or even more than he would get elsewhere, then work on a new contract, and that would be huge. Which contract would you give Jones? I mean, I think I would give Jones an extension, 3-year extension probably, and the money he would get this year would probably be close to that transition tag, and that would be a 115 million contract for 3 years with a signing bonus of 52 million, which that would equate to a new cap hit being $14 million, but Daniel Jones getting much more money this season. And then if the Colts would want to cut him in the future, then maybe it's a 2+1 kind of deal, so only the first 2 years are guaranteed, and they would have to work the details on that. But I think it's a pretty fair deal, and let's log it in to see the new cap hit. And as you can see right now, the Colts with this extension would have 37 million to spend. As I said before, I know it seems contradictory because we just gave Daniel Jones a lot of money, but that's how the NFL money works. I could do a video talking about how dead cap hits, base guaranteed money, what the signing bonus means, and all of that. But right now, we could sign Alec Pierce with that 37 million, and I think a pretty fair deal to Pierce. Here, the app it suggests an 80 million contract for 4 years. I think it's too little. Pierce is probably wide receiver one in the free agent market, so I think we would need to give him more money for him to be interested, and that would be around, I don't know, 92 million. That's what I calculated more or less would be pretty fair, with the signing bonus being probably close to 30, maybe 34, let's say, because with 34, um, he's getting 35 million this year, which is probably what he would have gotten a little bit more, what he would have gotten with the franchise tag if the Colts would have used it on him. And after the extension of Alec Pierce, it gives us 9 million new in the cap, and we still have 28 million. With this 28 million, we would sign some more free agents. So I've just signed a couple of veterans to the roster because we had, as we pointed out at the beginning, we have some spots to fill. Tyquan Lewis comes back, Molly comes back, and especially Neville Gallimore. I would really like to have Neville Gallimore back. I think he was a really nice addition last season. And now we have 24 million to work to have to sign a pretty big free agent, either being a net rusher or a safety. Remember, we still don't have Nick Cross. I don't think Nick Cross resigned with the Colts because he would probably ask for too much money. The thing right now, let's try to see So in the league, I've looked at the edge rusher market, and there are pretty expensive edge rushers at the beginning, but we might be able to sign someone in the Jaelan Phillips range to improve this defensive line, because I don't see resigning Kwity Paye or JT Tuimoloau being the starter. Let's give him the suggested contract. And as I said, it's not important who the player is. It's the important thing is that we signed like an edge rusher for the price that edge rushers go. We still have 80 million, and I would do the same for safety. I think maybe um, Cameron Coral, he would be like a great addition if we cannot resign Cross, but he would go for a lot of money. But let's give him the safety position Cameron Cole money, which would be like 10 million dollar a year. Yeah, exactly. And now we are sitting on 50 million, which if we said we needed to have like 9 million for the draft, that would be pretty good. And now, before going back to the roster and see how everything has panned out, let me check because I did this also with Over the Cap. Over the Cap lets you sim the next year. So I have Daniel Pierce, Alec Pierce's contract, Daniel Jones' contract, and Michael Pittman's contract here. And as you can see, the salary cap for 2027 is a little bit concerning because of Daniel Jones' contract, and also because we've prorated Michael Pittman's money, and we don't have for instance for Wagner, he will be a free agent. But I think that is the way Chris Ballard will do it, because he wants to keep this core intact, and he's basically extending the problem of salary cap another season. I don't think it's a bad option, because then in 2028 everything it's clear again, and Daniel Jones probably doesn't get guarantee money. So if they were to cut him, they would free this $35 million. They would have still 14 in cap space, like debt cap space, but still, it's a pretty good situation. Given what Ballard tends to do, I think it would make sense to resign Pittman, resign extend Pittman, sorry, resign Pierce, and give a new contract to Daniel Jones. So finally, let's go back to the depth chart. I've updated it. I forgot to mention that since Anthony Richardson asked for a trade, we would free like around $5 million if we trade him for picks, and that would be also good money to sign a good edge rusher. Um, I forgot to mention it earlier, but well, anyways, you can see now that we have Daniel Jones with the new contract, Alec Pierce renewed, Mo Cox, Tyquan Lewis, Gallimore, Olubi maybe for depth and special team play. And with the restructure of Michael Pittman, I also pointed out Wagner that could be a restructurable contract, because he already has void years in 2027 and 28, and that would only add money to that cap. But I think Pittman's option is the best. At the end, I know this is in Spanish, but it's pretty understandable. We would go into free agency with a spot on the DA defensive end, spot on the linebackers because of the Zaire Franklin cut, and on the strong safety because we probably won't have enough money to resign Nick Cross. But good news is the 2026 draft class is very strong on the linebackers. We probably would find very decent linebacker, starting linebacker in round 2 or 3. And same can be said for a wide receiver 3, 4, because there's also pretty good depth in wide receiver. And with the money we made on the salary cap with those adjustments, I think the Colts could sign a good edge rusher and a good free safety. And well, I think that's all. If you have some suggestions, something you would do different, please, I would really appreciate your input. I tried it to make as clear as possible. I know there are some concepts I didn't explain. I could do it in another video, but for now, I think this is what the Colts and Chris Ballard would do for next season. And until next time, bye.